Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3888BN. Today's date is April 21st, 2026, and the title of the episode is Thune blocked the investigations. Trump has a plan in place to protect the elections. See it? Did you know a popular looks maxing streamer said Gavin Newsom would beat J.D. Vance in the 2020 election because Vance was overweight and Gavin is better looking? Then Vance showed up to a recent interview looking completely transformed. Just weeks after the comment, everyone's pointing to GLP-1 type of drug, the same type of weight loss drug that 31 million Americans are on. But here's the thing. You don't need a prescription or a needle to get those results. This is why I'm obsessed with the particular GLP-1 supplement instead of a pharmaceutical override. It uses plant-based clinical studied ingredients like metabolate to help my body naturally boost its own hunger controlling signals. I get the same fullness and fewer cravings without the prescriptions, needles, or the growing list of side effects making headlines. It supports my weight management while protecting my metabolism so I can keep the results for good. To kick off spring, get 51% off only at trimwithx22.com. Every order comes with free VIP coaching for life, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, and free express shipping with subscriptions. Once again, that is trimwithx22.com, or just click the link in the description. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see they're doing whatever they possibly can to try to stop Trump. And they've been doing this since he came down the escalator. But you can see at this point, Trump now is in control. He's putting a lot of protections into place, and he's making sure that we have the ability to override anything that they try to do. And what's very interesting is that we know that Thune, he's blocking the Save America Act, and it seems that he's not going to pass that at all. But I think Trump knew this from the very, very beginning. He knew that most likely they wouldn't pass this. Now, again, he always likes to give the rhinos, the deep state players, the criminals a chance. Do the right thing. Pass the Save America Act. Show the people that you're for America. Now, he knows they're not going to do this. He knows that they're going to do the opposite. And I think in some respect, he was counting on it. Because again, when you read the Save America Act, there's a lot of things that cannot be put into place right now to protect the elections. The infrastructure isn't there. But if he shows everyone it's a national security threat, can he put simple things into place to protect the elections? Absolutely. And Thune is not just blocking the Save America Act. He's also blocking the investigations. Now, everyone goes, oh, it's Pam Bondi. She was the one doing it. No, Pam Bondi was put in a position to do certain things, to clean up the office, to restructure it, to put everything into place. Thune has been holding up the evidence, not delivering it to the DOJ. And now we have confirmation of that. But we could see as we move along here, Trump now is basically disabling the deep state system all around us. He's building the leverage up. And eventually, once we get the House and the Senate, which I do believe we will, he'll have every single piece he needs to go after them. That is when you see retribution. That is when you see accountability. That is when you see the trials. And basically what he's doing right now, he's setting it all up. I mean, think about what he's doing out in Iran right now. He's building the case against Obama. I mean, if we go back a little bit in time, he let everyone know and he let us know on Twitter at the time, that from his sources, Obama was never a citizen. And I do believe we're going to see a lot of information come out about Obama. It's going to show that he's treasonous, that he was never a citizen, he should have never been president. And they were all in line and all working together to overthrow a duly elected president and to oust him while he was in office from 2016 to 2020, and how they actually overthrew the president of the United States in 2020. And when they couldn't get rid of him, they tried to kill him. I do believe what people are going to see is that it's all of these people, all the people that have been against America, all those people that have been pushing against we the people. And it's not just the D's, it's not just the fake news, it's a lot of influencers too. And I think people are starting to realize that now. And I think people are starting to realize who they are because they're showing you who they are. And when they show you, believe them. Believe who they are when they tell you that they're against Trump. because, again, their world is going to fall apart, just like the Democrats' worlds are going to fall apart, just like the fake news world is going to fall apart, just like the central bank system is going to fall apart. You see, Trump, he put a plan in place. He made sure that he was able to create a counterinsurgency to go up against the insurgency that they have created going back in time. Remember, this just didn't start with Obama. It started all the way back in 1913, and it got worse and worse as time went on, created corruption, money laundering. They built their system over time. And I'm talking about the deep state players. And then they brought the people that they needed inside this country, so this way they can infiltrate the entire system to bring the country to a place where the people never really wanted to go. And this is what they were doing here. Plus, they were doing it throughout the world. You can see Europe right now, Australia, New Zealand, and all the other countries, they're still going down this path. Trump is reversing all of this because, again, I do believe he was brought in at the right moment, at the right time, to actually counter the insurgency that was going on. And he needed to create the counterinsurgency. He has many of the pieces already. He has the presidency, very, very important. He has the military, and look what the deep state players tried to do. They tried to turn the military on Trump. Remember, that is one organization they never really got to, and they weren't able to corrupt it fully, like the FBI, like the DOJ, like the CIA, like DHS. So Trump, he won the presidency, one piece. He has the military. They tried to remove that. Of course, they tried to remove him from being president. And he was able to wake the people up during the Biden/Obama administration. He was able to wake them up and see their true agenda because they showed you what they wanted the country to be. They showed you what was going to happen. They were going to censor. They were going to force you to take drugs that you didn't want to take. They were going to make everything woke. They were going to brainwash the children. They were going to do all of these things. They were going to bring in as many illegals into this country to blend the country so we lose our history. We lose everything that was fought for this country. Now Trump needs the other piece. The other piece is the House and the Senate. Because once again, he needs to remove the corrupt people in these different houses. And once that occurs, he has all the pieces he needs to go after the deep state players. He has all the leverage. The deep state at this point will have no leverage. What they will have is whatever they have across the world, which is not much because they're losing a lot. They'll have the fake news to try to push out lies, but I think at that point in time, it's not going to work. They will not have Congress to do anything because, once again, they would have lost that, which means Trump can reverse a lot of the things that they have done. And this is going to put them in a very, very tight position. And once again, Trump will then have the leverage to push forward with the investigations, with the indictments, having accountability, bringing people to justice. Because once you strip the deep state players of everything and they're at their weakest point, they have no more leverage across the world. They have no more leverage here in this country. What do they have left? Not much. That is when you strike, and you strike hard. And I do believe Trump is going to do that. And this is why every step of the way, he's had his people make sure that the elections, the midterms, were going to be safe, to make sure that we had a fighting chance. Because we know they're going to try to cheat. We know they're going to try to do whatever they possibly can to stop it. And when they can't stop it, they're going to turn everything around and try to blame it on Trump that he cheated in the election, which is going to cause riots. And they might take those riots and actually use cyber attacks to have blackouts to make it even worse. So once again, they will try everything they possibly can, but in the end, it's not going to work. And every step of the way, Trump is making sure that we have the ability to override everything that they're doing right now. And his last feat to make sure that we win the election in this year is basically making sure that people have voter ID, one-day voting, paper ballots, and no mail-in ballots. And I do believe it's going to be done because he told us it was going to be done. We'll be talking a lot more about this a little bit later. But first, let's talk about another piece of fake news, because now Wired came out with an article convincing people that Howard Lutnick's old firm was actually making a lot of money on the tariff system that Trump put into place. And you could see that once again, this is completely and utterly fake. Crypto Rover put this out and said, Howard Lutnick, the U.S. Commerce Secretary, sons made 3 to 5 times returning buying tariff refund rights. Howard Lutnick pushed tariffs, then handed his company, Cantor Fitzgerald, to his sons. Well, once again, it's all fake, phony, and false. Rapper Response 47 put this out and said, fake news, completely false. Howard Lutnick's old firm did not, in fact, profit from the Supreme Court tariff ruling. Trump War Room says this is fake news, and it was debunked by Semaphore, a left-leaning outlet, many weeks ago. And that's exactly what it is. It's completely and utterly fake. Just like when the D's and everyone else is trying to convince us that, hey, there's not that many illegals in this country, maybe 10, 20 million illegals in this country. Well, it seems that Bovino, who's actually seen the data from the inside, it looks like he's saying, no, that is not true whatsoever. Gregory K. Bovino put this out and said, it started at 10 million 30 years ago, with millions a year entering since then under all administrations, except Trump, culminating in 20 to 30 million additional under Biden alone, given on the ground assessment across all major regions of the U.S. in conjunction with both scholarly estimates and empirical evidence indicating 30 to 50 million as far back as 2012. The conservative number sits at 100 million. Could be more. And this is why we have a major, major problem in this country, because the infiltration started a long time ago. And you can see that Trump has completely and utterly shut it down. So are we going to need mass deportations? Yes, we're going to need it on a scale like we've never seen before. And I do believe this is why Trump is now acquiring warehouses across the country. I do believe this is why he moved Nome into a different position to coordinate with the other nations to take their people back. And I do believe it will be done. How long will it take? It will probably take quite a bit. Wall Street Maverick put this out and said, Bovino saw the data from the inside. He says there's 100 million illegals in America. Mass deportations for 4 years won't be enough. We need mass deportation and an immigration moratorium for at least a decade. Not a single Republican should be supporting any bill that lets even one illegal alien stay. And that's absolutely true. But I do believe Trump is going to be using what is going to happen during the midterms, maybe a little bit after the midterms, when they push their riots, because a lot of the illegals that were brought in under Biden, I do believe they're going to be used to create the riots. And this is going to make it a lot easier for Trump to move in and actually deport a lot of these people. Now, yes, will we have millions more to go? Absolutely. But I do believe Trump will get everything on the right track and start removing these people, and more of these people are being removed. We're going to see the economy all of a sudden start to spring back, and we're going to see a lot of changes. So once again, is he going to deport every single person? Probably not. But I think the majority will be deported, especially those people that have been brought in by Biden/Obama, starting all the way back when Obama came into office. And I do believe it will be done, because every single day, Trump and team, what are they discovering? They're discovering the money laundering system. And they're exposing it to the people every single day. And it's just going to get worse and worse as time goes on. I think the numbers are not just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trillion. I think this is going to be 30, 40, 50 trillion dollars in fraud over a period of time. And I think in the last couple of years, we're going to see that number. And people are going to be absolutely shocked. Eric Doherty put this out and said, Trump Interior Secretary Doug Burgum just revealed he found NGOs were up to 100% of their revenue was the federal government, and their CEO would make $650,000 a year and pay lobbyists $400,000. He exposes it. We found organizations that were receiving grants from Interior, where 80 to 100% of the revenue of the NGO was a grant from the federal government, and yet those organizations, we were the sole source of their revenue, but they would have a CEO making $650,000 and $400,000 lobbyists. Think about it. What were they using that for? I think we all know. And Elon says only the fraud was stopped by Doge. And even then, only some of the fraud. And yes, I do believe Trump brought Elon's team in, had him centralize Doge to shut down the main spigots, the 14 computers in the Treasury and USAID. Then Doge was decentralized, set up in each and every department to actually set up systems that will track the flow of money. And yes, is there more and more fraud being discovered every single day? Absolutely. And this will continue. And you have to remember, a lot of the money has been sent to places that you don't even know where it's sent. And then you find out it's in Minneapolis. Oh, then you find out it's in California. Then you find out it's in New York. Oh, then you find out it's across the seas. It's in other countries. So I do believe the fraud is all over the place. And you can see the deep state players, they are becoming very, very desperate because, again, as everything is being exposed, especially with Epstein, as everything's being exposed with their money laundering system, as everything's being exposed with their fake wars and everything else that they put into place to maintain control, what are they going to do to try to stop all of this? Well, I think we're already starting to see it. What they're going to try to do is they're going to try to censor. And that's what they're beginning to do. Pavel Durov put this out and said, this is how the EU, UK now regulate social media. Offer CEOs secret deals to censor dissent. If they refuse, open criminal cases against them. When people push back, say it's all for the children. Protecting children has become the standard legal PR cover. Elon Musk says, right on target. And that's what they do. Because once again, if the first thing doesn't work, they move to the next, then to the next. And when it all doesn't work, what do? Well, they shut it all down. That's what they do. GB News put this out and said, Keir Starmer could impose internet bans on adults, warns peer in major censorship alert. Awaken Outlaw says, of course he will. That was the plan all along. They just decided the best means of getting there was gaslighting the public with the "it's for the safety of the children" marketing campaign being used to get the government's heavy boot in the door. And how do you protect the children? Everybody has to give their ID. Everyone has to show who they are on the internet. And once you do this, you are tracked. And yes, they can use this to track you. It goes into their biometric system. And basically, this is what they're trying to do because it makes it a lot easier for them to shut you down, or they know exactly where you live and they can come to get you because that's how you'll have to sign on to the net. This is what they've been trying to do. And you can see they're pushing forward with this. Now, again, when this doesn't work, what do you think they'll end up doing? Most likely, they'll say, okay, let's just shut it all down. We're going to control the narrative via the fake news. I do believe that's what they're going to try to do. And I think this is why Trump let everyone know that there's a new White House app out there and you're going to get the information directly from the White House. Now, why would they set this up? Why would they tell people to go and use this? Because I do believe when there is some type of communication blackout and the fake news tries to control the narrative and you have a difficult time getting on social media, it doesn't mean the internet's down. It just means the social media platforms aren't operational. Maybe some of them are. But again, they're going to try to block it on the higher level. They wanted a way to actually send the information to the people directly. Now, think about Elon and Space Force. They have satellites up in space that can beam the information directly to your phone. So if you have an app, will you be able to get that data? Most likely, yes. I think this is what they've been planning on for a very, very long time. But Trump did respond to Keir Starmer and what he's been doing. And it's very, very interesting. He says, Prime Minister Keir Starmer of the United Kingdom acknowledged that he exercised wrong judgment when he chose his ambassador to Washington. I agree. He was a really bad pick. Plenty of time to recover, however, President DJT. And this has to do with Mandelson. So once again, he's saying Keir Starmer, he always knew that Mandelson went to Epstein. He was involved with Epstein. And Keir Starmer is working for the deep state players, and he's following their agenda. And it looks like Trump is just trolling them right now. Very, very interesting. Now, once again, when you look at the deep state players that are in Congress, you look at the fake news, you look at those people across the country, certain influencers, you can definitely see that they are not for the United States whatsoever. Because if they're rooting for the other side, I mean, think about it. We have a mission going on in Iran, and we have people rooting for Iran. It makes no sense whatsoever. Same thing with Venezuela. Same thing is going to happen with Cuba. Same thing with Ukraine. And what's very interesting is that Christopher Murphy, a U.S. Senator from Connecticut, actually said awesome to a post from Ali Vez that says at least 26 Iranian Shadow Fleet vessels bypass U.S. blockade. Why would that be awesome? He's on the Iranian side. He likes the killing of people. I mean, think about it for a second. And Sean Parnell says, first of all, this is false. Second, a Dem senator cheering on the number one state sponsor of terror is shameful. Absolutely. And you can see that once again, when you look at Iran, it's not a free country. They don't allow people to speak freely. They don't allow people to get on the street and protest peacefully. Anyone that does that, they shoot, they kill, they hang. E.L. Jacobi put this out and said, the Islamic Republic is preparing to hang 8 women. Not a word from the international community or so-called human rights organizations. Trump says to the Iranian leaders, who will soon be in negotiations with my representatives, I would greatly appreciate the release of these women. I am sure that they will respect the fact that you did so. Please do them no harm. Would be great start to our negotiations. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. But it seems like there might have been something happening with the negotiations. It looks like the J.D. Vance and Kushner, who are supposed to be, and Witkoff, are supposed to be going out there. It seems like it was delayed a little bit, but let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Maybe they are on their way, but we'll have to see. And what's very interesting is that we know from yesterday that an Iranian tanker was trying to make its way to the Iranian ports, and they were warned by the Navy, do not go there. They decided to ignore the warning, multiple warnings, and the Navy blew a hole in their engine room and shut down the entire ship. And Trump let us know that there was something on the ship, and it was a gift from China to Iran. So, again, the information that's coming out from all of this is that it was chemicals to create the missile systems. So once again, we could see Iran is working with China, or maybe certain deep state players within China, and they're trying to ship these weapons to Iran. Now, I think the other part of this, which we mentioned yesterday, I think the bigger gift is the logs on the ship. War has a devastating effect on people living there locally. What most people don't realize is it's affecting everyone on the global scale as well, even if we aren't there physically. Every time a missile is launched or a bomb goes off, tiny microplastic particles are being spread into our atmosphere, leaching into our soil and water, eventually ending up in our body, causing irreparable harm. They cross the gut lining, leach into your blood, and disrupt everything. They've been shown to alter gut bacteria, suppress your immune response, and increase your risk for heart attack and stroke. Cognitive diseases and cancer. There's now a plastic spoon worth of microplastics in the average human brain, but your gut can help you fight back. Kimchi One from Bright Core Nutrition is a potent ally in this toxic world. It's packed with over 900 probiotic strains unique to kimchi and proven to break down microplastics, helping you detox from the inside out. Your body was never designed to handle plastic, but your gut was designed to protect you. You just got to give it the right tools. Today, you can get an exclusive offer by clicking the link below for 25% off your entire order. Or for an even better deal, call my friends at Bright Core for up to 50% off your order and free shipping. Give them a call now at 888-959-5248 or just click the link in the description. That since China decided to do this, it gave Trump the information that he needed. It was a gift to him. That's very, very interesting. So maybe this was done on purpose. Let's see how this all plays out. But Trump let everyone know that Iran has violated the ceasefire numerous times. And he let us know that the D's, the fake news, they're all against the American people. They're all against America. Trump says never allow the traitor Democrats like low IQ person Hakeem Jeffries or crying Chuck Schumer or the totally corrupt fake news media such as the phony and decaying Wall Street Journal, the failing New York Times, subscription way down, or dying 60 Minutes to demean or criticize Operation Midnight Hammer, which totally obliterated the nuclear dust locations to the point where bloodthirsty Iran has been unable to get to it or dig it all out. Space Force has cameras on every inch of the 3 sites that were so brilliantly hit last June. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. And what's very interesting is Trump let everyone know that, hey, you don't got to get your oil from the Strait or Iran. You can actually come to the U.S. and get your oil there. So what is he doing? He's actually shifting everything. And you can see there is some type of regime change because the regime that controlled the Strait is no longer in control. And those ships that were getting the oil from Cargill, Iran, they're no longer getting the oil there. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the Iranian leadership has forced hundreds of ships toward the United States, mostly Texas, Louisiana, Alaska, to get their oil. Thank you very much, President DJT. And it seems that Trump now has confirmed that he has been in control of the Strait of Hormuz, which, going back in time with the power of the Navy and only 10% of the Navy, you could see that the U.S. was able to outpower Iran with absolutely no problem. And you can see there's nothing they can do to stop what Trump is doing. The Trump War Room put this out and said, the blockade has been a tremendous success. They said 2 days ago, we will open the Strait. I said, no, we're going to open the Strait until we have a final deal. We totally control the Strait, just so you understand. So Trump is letting everyone know the Strait is completely controlled. He's always controlled the Strait, and he's putting pressure on the deep state proxies. He's putting pressure on the central bank. He's putting pressure on all of these people. Who do you think is going to last the longest? Do you think it's the proxy army that needs the oil sales to operate? Do you think it's going to be the UK, France, Germany, the EU? Do you think they'll be able to ride this out? Or do you think the US has all the leverage because we don't need the oil from there? Can we live with $3.99 gallon of gas? Can we live with $3.89 or $4.01 gallon? Of course we can. We did it under Biden. Biden was a lot more. So is this a big deal? It's not really a big deal. And think about what Trump just did. He actually went ahead and he signed executive orders and basically enacted the DPA, the Defense Production Act, which means the oil, the gas, the drilling, and everything else, it's a national security issue, which means we're going to drill like we've never seen before. And we're going to produce so much oil, so much gas, so much everything that what's going on in Iran won't even make a difference. But the other mission that Trump is now pushing is to do what? It's to collect the evidence against Obama. This is why he's using the entire narrative that Iran is going to create a nuclear. Remember, this is why Obama sent over cash to stop this. So Trump is using this story, saying that they have the uranium, we must collect the uranium, and we must bring it back to the United States. Clandestine says, just so we're clear, Iran themselves admitted they are pursuing nuclear weapons. The IAEA confirmed Iran had enriched up to 60% well past civilian needs. The mainstream media are now openly admitting it also. Yet people like Dave Smith swore up and down Iran pursuing nukes was a myth to justify war for Israel. In other words, Trump has been right the entire time. Again. So do they have uranium? Of course they do. Because who gave it to them? Obama, Clinton, and the rest. Clandestine then says, notice how every time Trump talks about the nuclear dust, he says we will be bringing it back as if to say we had it before. I don't think this is an accident. I think Trump is telling us that the uranium used to be ours, meaning Obama gave Iran U.S. uranium. And that's exactly what he did. And now Trump is using everything that they did against them. And yes, he'll be collecting the uranium. Now, do you think the deep state players, Obama and the rest, do you think they're instructing the proxy army of Iran to say, no, we're not making a deal? Do you think they're telling them to keep pushing back? Because they know once Trump makes a deal and there's regime change in Iran and he goes to collect the uranium, brings it back to this country, looks at the isotope, and it shows that it came from the United States, and they start to track down who actually sold this to Iran, well, the jig is up. And Clandestine says, the situation in Iran has made me more confident than ever that the prosecution of deep state actors will be handled by the U.S. military, not the DOJ. If we find evidence that Obama admin wittingly aided Iran in their pursuit of nuclear weapons, the entire ball game changes. providing weapons of mass destruction to a radical Islamic terrorist regime, while we as a nation are still technically in a state of war since 9/11, that's not just aiding and abetting our enemies. It's also known as treason. It's a direct threat to national security and an act of war against the United States. Anyone involved could be labeled as an unlawful enemy combatant and tried as a terrorist via military tribunal, which would completely circumvent the DOJ and would be subject to death. This is why the enriched uranium, or nuclear dust as Trump calls it, is so important. The uranium holds a nuclear fingerprint that will be traced to its origin, and obviously Trump and the U.S. military know where the trail ends, uranium-1. So for those groaning about Pam Bondi, the DOJ, FBI, where are the arrests, etc., you have been looking in the wrong spot. The military is the avenue for justice. Again, deep state actors. The uranium in Iran is the smoking gun, and Trump is about to secure it. Now, let's go back a little bit in time in regards to Obama. Remember when Trump put this out, and if we go all the way back to his tweet from 2012, August 6th, 2012, Trump said an extremely credible source, I wonder if it was the military, has called my office and told me that Barack Obama's birth certificate is a fraud. That's interesting. Awaken Outlaw responded to this, and he's pointing to Barack Obama's brochure they distributed widely to promote his first book, Journeys in Black and White. So what does this say, and what part is he talking about? Well, when you look at the brochure, it says where he was born. So this is what it says. Barack Obama, the first African-American president of the Harvard Law Review, was born in Kenya and raised in Indonesia and Hawaii. Now, why would they have that? Why would they say he's born in Kenya? Does that make any sense whatsoever? Unless he was born in Kenya and he manipulated a birth certificate. Remember that woman in Hawaii who created the birth certificate for him? She just mysteriously died in a plane crash. Now, why would Trump say that? Why would he say, hey, I got information that he should not be president. It's not a real birth certificate. I do believe this was all covered up to put him into this position. Remember, it's infiltration from within. You think it's infiltration just bringing in illegals? You think it's infiltration just infiltrating the local governments? You think it's infiltration just by infiltrating the House or the Senate? No, they infiltrated everything. They did it on purpose to have full and utter control to push their agenda. And now it is failing, and it will continue to fail. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. That is why. And Trump has all the leverage. He's winning against these people every step of the way. And you can see how panicked they really are. Cory Booker is calling for foot soldiers to take to the streets to stand up against darkness in a very bizarre rant. So he says there's a storm brewing in our nation, and Democrat politicians need their foot soldiers to fight for democracy. So basically what he's saying is, listen, when the storm hits, because the storm is approaching, we're going to need Antifa, we're going to need the illegals, we're going to need everyone on the streets, and we're going to need chaos like we've never seen before. This is how panicked they really are. And think about it. Remember the Democrat Sheila McCormick? Well, she was indicted because she stole $5 million from FEMA funds. And basically, it looks like she just resigned. Actually, Representative Anna Paulina Luna says, bye-bye. Now, is she still going to go to jail? Most likely, yes. But again, she is now out. Very, very interesting. Now, the other person that has decided to resign is Labor Secretary Lori Chavez de Raymer. Stephen Chung put this out and said, Labor Secretary Lori Chavez de Raymer will be leaving the administration to take a position in the private sector. She has done a phenomenal job in her role by protecting American workers, enacting fair labor practices, and helping Americans gain additional skills to improve their lives. Keith Sondlinger will take on the role of acting Secretary of Labor. So it looks like there was something going on with her husband. He was under investigation for sexual misconduct. And it looks like, once again, It's better that these people step down or they're removed. And again, you don't know who's who until things come out. And once again, there's no problem if there's a shakeup in the Trump administration, because we rather have these people out and Trump bring in other people that they can vet, they can look into and make sure that they're the people that we need. Sometimes, yes, they're going to be people that, hey, we vetted this person, but look, it's their husband or it's their wife that is the problem. I mean, if you look at Kristi Noem, she's fine. It was her spouse. And again, you can't control your spouse. So, I mean, maybe some people can, but most of the people cannot control their spouse. They're their own person. They have their own mind. They do their own things in private. And yes, these things do come up. Now, the other thing that we could see is that Virginia right now, they're going to be voting to basically rejigger the entire congressional map. And Trump is out there letting everyone know that Virginia, vote no to save our country. So basically, Trump called out Virginians to storm the polls today and vote down the 10 Democrats, 1 Republican congressional map. And basically, this is what needs to be done. Hopefully, it will be done. Now, the other thing that we see is that the Supreme Court, they seem to have a leaking problem. Now, is it really a leaking problem, or do they really know who the leaker is and they just don't want to go after the leaker? It's almost like when Biden was in the White House, we had leaks coming all over the place. Nobody knew where the leaker was. Well, that's how the criminal syndicate works. The criminal syndicate protects the leakers because they want it leaked. And when they say they're going to have an investigation, they don't really mean they're going to have an investigation. It really means that, hey, we're going to tell you we're going to have an investigation, and then later on we're going to tell you we just can't find that person. And that's exactly what's happening. But Mike Lee wants to know, how come every time there's a leak, they all have one thing in common? The leaks always harm the conservative justices. It always harms the conservatives. Don't you find that very, very interesting? Benjamin Weingarten says, no consequences for the Dobbs leaker guarantees more leaks and worse conduct. The investigations seem fake. And it is fake. That's exactly what it is. Now, when we look at Pam Bondi, when we look at Kash Patel, when we look at Kristi Noem and Ratcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard, you can see Trump put these people in positions for a reason. Some people were going to stay there long term. Other people were there to do certain things. She Thinks Freely put this out and says, stop saying it's been a year. Bondi slow walked. Bondi was ineffective. Bondi fumbled, was fired, and failed. Why? Because all you need to do is look at the sequence of events and a calendar, recognize how foolish you sound regurgitating this nonsensical narrative. February 5th, Pam Bondi confirmed. March 10th, Jason Redding Quinones nominated as U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. August 13th, Redding Quinones confirmed. September 26th, federal grand jury was announced in Fort Pierce, Florida. October 21st, House Judiciary refers John Brennan to DOJ for criminal prosecution. November 30th, 30-plus subpoenas sent out, including to ex-CIA Director John Brennan, Peter Strzok, and Lisa Page. December 22nd, John Brennan's attorney write a letter begging that Trump-friendly Judge Aileen Cannon be removed from the DOJ case, confirming he is the subject of a federal criminal investigation. January 12, 2026, federal grand jury seated for the first meeting as scheduled. January 15, 2026, Quinones expands his team, swearing in several new AUSAs and SAUSAs at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida. February 26, 2026, Quinones expands investigation. Subpoena sent climbed to more than 130. And then, April 2nd, Bondi removed from DOJ. Do the Circle Jerk podcast influencers know? Have they known the whole time? While they've been manipulating the masses into believing nothing's happening, yes, this is all public and well known. But if they told you the truth, they wouldn't be able to manipulate you into believing we've been betrayed. Receipts below. So once again, yes, Pam Bondi set it all up. She's moving into a different position. And it wasn't Pam Bondi who was actually stopping the investigation. And you have to remember how federal investigations work. This is not a house robbery. This is not a murderer. This is not stealing. This is a federal investigation. It's a federal crime. And most of the time, they just don't go out and arrest people. Yes, under the deep state, they wanted to make a show of it. They went out and they arrested people. They went out and they stormed in the early morning hours. They tipped off the press, like in Roger Stone's case, and they went and they dragged them out. And they did this to multiple people. It's great for show. But again, you still need a grand jury. You still need indictments. You still need certain things to happen. And I do believe Trump and team, what they're doing is they're gathering the evidence. Because again, we're not doing this for show. We're not doing it for people to say, hey, look, we have an arrest and now they're let go. We did that with Comey. We did that with Letitia James. How'd that work out? Everyone like that? No. You have a grand jury. You do it the right way. You have a grand jury. You bring in the evidence. You move forward with the subpoenas. You gather all this, and the grand jury says, okay, there's enough here. This person, look at this. We're going to indict them. So we have many different grand juries impaneled right now. And I do believe Pam Bondi pretty much set it all up, and now DOJ is off and running. But who's been slowing all of this down? Who's been slowing the information headed towards the DOJ? Well, it looks like it's Thune. Tony Saruga put this out and said, guess who's obstructing the prosecution of the grand conspiracy probe? The ongoing grand jury investigation into the alleged Obama-Biden era weaponization of intelligence and law enforcement against Trump centered on Russiagate crossfire hurricane origins. The Justice Department, even under Pam Bondi, was pedal to the metal, but Thune is slow-walking the fully unredacted transcripts, records, and documents from the Senate Judiciary and Intelligence Committees. These cover Brennan's congressional testimony, briefings, and involvement in the January 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment on Russia election interference, the Steele dossier's role, and related Trump-Russia collusion claims. The deadline was February 23, 2026. The materials are for an active grand jury investigation into Fort Pierce, Florida. It is now 2 months past the deadline, and the Senate has not fully complied. Prosecutors have been allowed limited access, reading one Intelligence Committee report in a secure room, SCIF, but the full transmission of records hasn't happened. This is slowing a key angle of the probe, 27 votes to remove Thune, who is basically taking his orders from Senator McConnell. And that's absolutely true. So neither Trump or Bondi ever said she got fired or he said she was fired or removed for bad performance. In fact, Trump said the opposite of that. I do believe she's being put into a different position to handle a different criminal aspect of everything. Remember, Trump doesn't do things by accident. And yes, there are certain people that he had to move or let go, but the core people, I do believe there was a mission, there was a plan in all of this. And yes, we could see, since they're going after Kash Patel, you could see that they're very panicked. That's why they put out a hit job on Kash. And think about it. The individual, the reporter who actually wrote the article, she also did this with Kavanaugh. Megan Basham explains, by the way, Sarah Fitzpatrick is also the reporter who wrote the roughly debunked hit piece that claims Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh drugged women so they could be sexually abused. She has a history of writing hit pieces with either no sources on the record or completely discredited sources. Absolutely. But it looks like The Atlantic, they're not going to retract the story. They're going to keep it online so everyone can read it. You think they have a mission? You think they have a narrative that they got to keep pushing out there? Because think about what's coming. Do you think we're going to see some indictments? Do you think we're going to see some arrests? Most likely, yes. Brad Slager says, and the fractures are already being seen. For some reason, The Atlantic felt the need to change the headline on the hit piece. Also, other outlets are unable to confirm any of the alleged details. When you look at the headlines, the first headline said, Kash Patel's erratic behavior could cost him his job. The second headline, which they changed it to, the FBI director is MIA. So why the change if they're so confident in their article? Because again, they're not confident. They know it's fake. They know it's all made up. Cynical Publius says, every single time you see an anonymously sourced news article that is unflattering to a member of the Trump administration, the anonymous source is someone in the government who is unhappy that a Trump appointee is pushing the agenda the American people elected Trump to push 100% of the time, without exception. Also, The facts revealed by the anonymous source are always either lies or gross exaggerations, or they leave out very significant facts that tell a different story, 100% of the time, without exception. Please keep this in mind when reading anonymously sourced articles. Absolutely. And we call those people sleepers. Those are the sleepers that are still in the agencies. So yes, is there still a lot of cleaning up that has to be done? Absolutely. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is we could see that there's an investigation going on in Act Blue. And it seems those people that are testifying, they pled the fifth like 140-something times. Not really surprising. But Just the News put this out and said, this is a bombshell report. It sets up there is a grand jury and an FBI investigation that's paralleling or shadowing what the Congress referred some of this evidence to them a few weeks ago. This is a big, big story. So basically, he's talking about Act Blue. Remember, Act Blue got a lot of their money from BLM. When BLM got their donations during 2020, it was siphoned into Act Blue, then into Biden's campaign and many other people. And they use Act Blue to do all of this. And it looks like what Congress has done with their investigation, it looks like the FBI is also doing the same thing, and it's shadowing the entire investigation. So this is very, very interesting. And I do believe most likely we'll probably see indictments come out in regards to this. And I think C3 pretty much sums it all up in regards to the Democratic Party, because now with everything being exposed, it's becoming very, very clear who and what they are. Once you realize the Democratic Party, Antifa is the military wing, Judiciary is the lawfare wing, Media is the propaganda wing, Act Blue is the laundering wing, SPLC ADL is the targeting wing, Hollywood is the indoctrination wing, Soros NGO network is the financial wing. It's simple. And if you add on to that Epstein, that is the control blackmail wing. So when you really look at this, you can see how their entire system works. And this is the criminal syndicate. This is what we're seeing. And you can expand this and you can go across the globe, because then you have the terrorist part of it, the drug trafficking and everything else. This is all part of their system. Absolutely unbelievable. And now, since Thune has come back after a 2-week recess, he is now basically moving against the Save America Act. So Anna Paulina Luna says no voter ID, no FISA. Now, that's very interesting, because Trump mentioned FISA, saying, yeah, we want FISA. And of course, you know that these people want FISA because they like to spy on people. And now Anna Paulina Luna is using this against the Senate. Now, once again, we know that Thune never really wanted to pass the Save America Act. I think Trump was hoping they would do the right thing. But I think in the end, he knew that these people are so corrupt that they won't do it. But he always gives the people a chance to do the right thing. And I think he's always known that they were never going to do this, and he was going to have to do it a different way. I think he might have been counting on this, because again, if the Save America Act was passed, there's a lot of things in there, and we'd have to create the infrastructure for a lot of it, and it would take some time. So basically, if you're looking at that, and he actually has what he wants to do in his back pocket, and people say, look, you didn't get the Save America Act, but then he pulls it out of his back pocket and he says, look, we're still going to have voter ID. We're going to still use paper ballots. We're still going to have one-day voting and no mail-in ballots. He got them. And it's a much more simplistic form of doing it. Yes, can we vote on the Save America Act for the presidential election? Absolutely. I think that will be done later. But I think MJ Truth Ultra explains why Trump might be taking this position. He says, I've been doing some reading on the SAVE Act, and if it passes, I've been asking myself, what is the realistic impact for the midterms this year? The answer is loaded. Here's what it means for every state election and why 2026 midterms could get chaotic. If the SAVE Act passes and becomes law, it would impose major new federal mandates on states for administrating federal elections. The bill primarily amends the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. The SAVE Act core requirement for states include documentary proof of U.S. citizenship for voter registration. States could no longer accept or process any voter registration. Application online, mail, DMV, public assistance agencies, or in person for federal elections unless the applicant provides specific proof of citizenship at the time of application. Acceptable documents are limited. For example, a valid U.S. passport, certified birth certificate paired with a photo ID, naturalization certificate, or a certain military or tribal ID that explicitly show U.S. birth. Standard driver licenses generally do not qualify, and mail-in registration would be severely restricted or effectively eliminated for many fake voters, since proof often must be presented in person to an election official. Voters updating their registration for new addresses, name change, or party switch would also need to provide proof again. Alternative process. States must create a backup system for applicants without standard documents involving additional evidence and affidavits. Voter list maintenance and purges. States must take affirmative steps on an ongoing basis to verify citizenship and remove illegal aliens from voter rolls. This includes using federal databases for cross-checks. Some versions also add stricter photo ID requirements for voting. What they are most terrified of: liability for officials. Election officials will face criminal penalties or civil lawsuits for registering someone without required proof, and even if the person is a U.S. citizen. These rules apply only to federal elections, but would likely disrupt state processes too, since many states use unified systems to my understanding. And here's where things get a little tricky and spicy. The bill provides no additional funding for implementation, training, or documented processing, and it preempts conflicting state laws in key areas. My main question on timing and realism for this to be implemented in the 2026 midterms. Look at this. It is not realistic for states to fully and smoothly implement these changes, even if the bill passes relatively soon, given how much time is left until the midterms. The caveat: the bill takes effect immediately upon enactment and applies to all registration applications submitted on or after that date, with the Election Assistance Commission requiring to issue guidance to states within 10 days. There is no built-in phase-in period. States would face enormous administrative overhaul in roughly 4 to 7 months, updating or rebuilding voter registration systems, forms, websites, portals across all methods, training thousands of election officials and staff on new documents review process, educating the public, and handling a likely surge in-person visits or document submissions, setting up database cross-check programs for purges and integrating new verification steps, managing backlogs, potential legal challenges, and any state legislative adjustment needed. To put it plainly, many states lack the infrastructure, staffing, or budget for a sudden nationwide shift, and similar state-level proof of citizenship experiments cause registration delays and backlogs, even with more lead time. So once again, yes, this is quite a bit to do. Now, I think Trump knows that this would be a lot. And I think he knows that the deep state players were never going to pass it. Now, can this be passed after the midterms once we win? Absolutely. Will there be enough time? 2 years for the presidential election? Absolutely. But I do believe, as Trump likes to make deals, and he uses the art of the deal and art of the war, I think he wanted everyone looking at the Save America Act. And this way, everyone's looking at it. Everyone's saying they love it. Everyone says they want it. And then you have the deep state players do what they do best. You have the rhinos, the Ds, and everyone else say, we're not going to pass it. So now this becomes a national security issue in this country. And I think this is why Trump put this out going a little bit back in time, and this is going back to February of 2026, that we're going to do it no matter what. So Trump, he put this out and says, the Democrats refuse to vote for voter ID or citizenship. The reason is very simple. They want to continue to cheat in the elections. This was not what our founders desired. I have searched the depths of legal arguments not yet articulated or vetted on this subject, and will be presenting an irrefutable one in the very near future. There will be voter ID for the midterm elections, whether approved by Congress or not. Also, the people of our country are insisting on citizenship and no mail-in ballots, with exceptions for military, disability, illness, or travel. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So basically, he's going to present an irrefutable piece of information that he's going to use to say we must have voter ID now. This is the simplistic part of the Save America Act. You need a voter ID to go in to vote. We're only going to have 1 day voting. It has to be on paper. It has to be counted that day. No mail-in. That's it. Very simple. No databases, nothing. So think about that for a second. What is going to be the irrefutable piece of evidence that he's going to provide us in the near future? I do believe he's going to show everyone the elections are rigged. Then it's going to become a national security issue. So basically, everyone's looking at the Save America Act. He got everyone on board with that. The people love it. The people want it. 84% of the people of this country want it. Even the D's want it. So when Trump comes out and says, look, the elections were rigged. This is how they did it. The machines were involved. Mail-in ballots were involved. And they rigged the elections. This is a national security issue right now. And instead of going through all the Save America Act stuff, which would be kind of impossible to do right now, let's do the simplistic form. Everyone with me? Everyone just bring your ID. Show that you're a U.S. citizenship. You're a U.S. citizen. Bring your real ID. Bring your passport. Well, this is going to cut out a lot of the illegals, isn't it? And we're not going to use the machines. Let's use paper ballots. So that kind of blows Nancy Pelosi's thing out of the water. Maybe some places will still use the machines. Maybe they'll use the paper ballots that are there and feed them into the machines. Maybe, maybe not. But there'll be no mail-in ballots, and everything will be counted on that day. So let's say if you have a U.S. passport or real ID, and you bring it with you, and you show that you're a citizen, a lot of the illegals aren't going to come. If you use the paper ballots that are there, and maybe you do fill it in, slide it into the machine, we're going to have results right there. And if we count it that day, there's no mail-ins. There's no way for them to make up the other votes. And this is a national security issue. And it's a very simplistic form of the Save America Act. Remember, we can't fix everything, but what he can do, he can make it very, very difficult for the deep state players to cheat. So I do believe most likely the machines will be used because he wants Nancy Pelosi to use that narrative that the votes were switched. It's going to prove his case. So Trump, I do believe, has always planned for this. He's already been preparing for this. And he was making everyone look over there, and people are going to accept the simplistic form with no problem whatsoever. And we are going to win the House and the Senate. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.